Hello, everyone. Welcome to another insightful webinar brought to you by Determ. Thank you so much for registering for today's webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about the art of mastering crisis communication, identifying key signals, and restoring brand reputation. My name is Vučić, and I'm thrilled to announce you to our engaging topic and our esteemed speaker of the session. Next to me, you can see Thea. She's a seasoned customer success manager who had stood alongside our clients during numerous crises. Her experience makes her the perfect choice to guide us through today's topic of crisis management. Okay, so as for here's our speaker, Thea. So as for our agenda, Ta's going to kick things off by introducing the concept of crisis, accompanied by some recognizable examples from the media. After that, we're going to delve into Determin's powerful crisis identification process. Ta's going to demonstrate how our media monitoring tool is going to effectively identify key signals and essential keywords that mark the onset of a crisis. After that, we're going to shift our focus to tracking brand reputation during a crisis. This segment is going to explore some key metrics, such as sentiment analysis, mentions over time, sources that actually provide us all of the insights into reputation management. And after that, we're going to share some valuable insights on crafting audience-specific messages and how we use our AI assistant, Cynthia, to make our lives easier. After that, we're going to open the floor to some questions for a Q&A session. Feel free to ask as many questions during the webinar in the Q&A section on your right. That's the right. I'm not sure if it's mirrored. We're not going to interrupt Thea during her webinar, so we're going to answer all those questions at the end. So stay with us until the end to get the answers you're looking for. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, and take it away.
Well, thank you, Vučić. Thank you for this lovely introduction. So just, to frame today's session, so to say, I'm going to talk about PR crisis in particular, and how Determ and media monitoring tools such as Determ can help you in identifying such crises and help you through them and help you see your way out through the crises. Now, give me a moment to share my slide. All right, I think we've got it. We've got it now. So, what is a PR crisis? So, of course, you are more than welcome to share your input, your thoughts, your comments, your feedback during my presentation and after this presentation, especially because you are, as PR professionals, my target audience. So any feedback you might have is more than welcome. So in terms of a PR crisis, this might be characterized as a situation where a brand, a company, an individual, a business is facing an influx of negative publicity. So we are talking about online media, offline media. We are talking about a vortex of negative posts about a certain topic or about a certain individual or brand. Now, as a result, or during this PR crisis, this brand or this person's public image might be threatened. The general audience might lose trust in this particular organization or company or an individual, which in turn can lead to a loss of profit and destabilizing the company or this said organization as a whole. Now, when talking about the onset of a crisis or what can cause a PR crisis, the factors are numerous. We can, I think you can also think of several examples where controversial statements, legal issues, or faulty products led to a public outcry and then a PR crisis. So I've got 3 examples prepared for you as this introduction, where I'd like to, I'm going to show you the images, and I'd like you to give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down through the chat if you can, answering this question. Do you recognize the images, or rather the PR crises these images can be associated with? So a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you might know what these PR crises might be about. Okay, I've got some thumbs thumbs up here. Okay, so this was just a test, of course. If you're not sure, if you're not recognizing, some of the images are opaque. I wanted to talk about 3 PR crisis examples just to refresh your memory and to see how they were handled before we start talking about DTerm and media monitoring software. So the first PR crisis I wanted to mention is the Samsung one. So in 2016, Samsung released their new phone, the Galaxy Note 7. And shortly after the phone's release, there were reports of phones overheating, catching fire, exploding even. So as you can maybe remember or imagine, this brought on a huge wave of negativity towards Samsung, and people were complaining all over the world, actually. So how did Samsung react and respond to this crisis? Well, firstly, they announced a 100% recall of their faulty product, of their faulty phone. And they started working on their very public and numerous apologies. So the C-suite owned up to this problem and publicly apologized for this. And soon after that, they started working on fixing the issue, the problem with the phones. So they built a whole new lab and employed over 500 researchers, so they could find the root cause of the problem with the batteries, which resulted in Samsung developing a completely new 8-step quality testing batteries program, which in turn improved the overall quality of Samsung phones later on, which in turn raised industry standards in the phone business, in the phone industry. So Samsung not only owned their mistakes, they jumped really quickly to fixing their issues, but of course there were some repercussions. There were financial losses, and people they had to deal with people's mistrust in the brand. Now, the second example I've got prepared for today is an example of a PR crisis brought upon a controversial statement, let's say, and I'm talking about the second image in the upper right corner here. Which I'm not sure which picture got your thumbs up here, but this one is rather famous. So we are in 2017, and Pepsi is releasing their new ad featuring Kendall Jenner. And within the ad, our main star, Kendall, is offering a can of Pepsi to a police officer who is overseeing protests at the other end of the street. So the imaging, the message was, through Pepsi, bridge social inequality, reach peace, unity, and understanding. So, and of course, this was, the backlash that was mentioned after releasing this ad. So swiftly after this huge amount of negative comments towards Pepsi was released, Pepsi took down the video and reacted in a way through apologies. So they issued a public apology. They issued an apology to Kendall Jenner. However, their apology was not met with open arms, as even though they owned up to their mistake and being insensitive or maybe tone deaf, they said they took a misstep and then that they only wanted to spread, the word, the message of unity and positivity and acceptance. So people were still rather unhappy with Pepsi even after the apology, because they didn't seem that's maybe sincere or aware of the implications and the real situation that was going on in the world. Now, the third PR crisis was, and this is the image in the lower right, was brought upon a legal issue, or rather a data breach. And I'm sure some of you are very much aware and familiar with the case. So it is 2018. And we are at Facebook, and what is happening is the Cambridge Analytica scandal, in which private personal data of over 80 million private users, Facebook users, was harvested by Cambridge Analytica, through which private users of Facebook were then targeted for political campaigns. Now, of course, the users didn't know that data was being harvested and used and so forth. So once this was made public, Facebook's first response was downplaying the crisis and the extent of what was going on. However, as more and more details were bubbling up, Facebook issued apologies. But it was maybe too late for that at this point, as distrust was already apparent within the Facebook community. Many of Facebook users deactivated their account, and Facebook's CEO was summoned to testify before the US Congress. And of course, this resulted in implementing stricter privacy policies, and third, app permissions. However, Facebook's reputation was largely damaged by what was going on. So I hope I managed to frame what a PR crisis is, and hopefully I refreshed your memory a little bit. Now, to go back to the main purpose of today's webinar is, how can you, as PR professionals, use media monitoring tools to help you either identify, that there's a crisis brewing, or even, help you through an ongoing crisis? Well, media monitoring tools are perfect if you want real-time news coverage from not only websites, but also social media. It can help you identify large quantities of posts about a certain topic or a certain client or a certain company you are working for, so you are well prepared and well informed when or if the crisis hits. So when talking about DTERM specifically, how could you use our media monitoring solution when either dealing with a crisis or anticipating and making sure you are ready for an eventual crisis? So DTERM can be used in various ways, but I'd like to emphasize the queries, the filters, the alerts, and the reports that can help you with that. So through queries or through the searches you are setting up either for your own brand, your client, or the company you're providing your services for, you are making sure that you are tracking all the conversations that are important for your client. So you are being on top of the situation even before something bad happens. Now, by mastering the filters within the tool, you will quickly learn to identify the key portals or the key profiles, the key players, conversation starters, who are posting about a certain crisis or a certain topic or your client in a certain light. So you set up your search, you master the filters within the tool, and then you set up alerts. So DTERM can help you in navigating your crisis situation by alerting you in real time about any new content or news piece that is posted about the topic you are tracking. And later on, so the fourth bullet here in my presentation are the reports. So reports are not only for data analysts, and I would like to show you today, and I will, how our custom reports can be utilized in times of crisis, just to see, just to verify in which direction the numbers are moving. Are we, in an upwards trend when it comes to talking about a certain problem, a certain issue, a certain crisis, or is this winding down? So reports can really help you confirm that the crisis is, winding down and that it's maybe behind you. So without further ado, what I'll demonstrate in the tool today live, I'm going to take an example of a current ongoing crisis and show you how to identify PR crisis, how to identify keywords, how to create a crisis query, how to set up alerts for such queries, how to use some other features and metrics within the tool, as well as guiding you through the most important custom charts in our dashboards. So allow me a second while I switch my screen. Hello, I'm bigger now, sorry. All right, so welcome to DTerm. Some of you are already our clients and you're familiar with this site. Some of you, for some of you, this is the first time seeing our platform, our feed, and how it operates. Of course, your questions are more than welcome. Your feedback after my demonstration is going to be valuable. So I would be very, very interested in hearing if you're seeing good opportunities for you as PR professionals through DTerm when it comes to crisis management. So, as I said, today I'm going to guide you through a real life example of an ongoing crisis in the world. And I'm referring to the PR crisis around Lizzo. So if you're not completely sure who Lizzo is, she is a globally famous singer who is famous for her strong vocals, and generally her brand is focusing on body positivity and affirmation. So she's always portrayed in a very positive light. Now, what has happened? So what is this crisis about then? Well, earlier this month, so earlier this August, it was made official that some of her former dancers are suing her for alleged hostile work environment, fat shaming, sexual harassment, among others. So the allegations are pretty strong, pretty serious, and the uproar is pretty big. So I don't know if you're familiar with what's been going on, if you've been tracking what's been going on. For today, this PR crisis has been chosen just because it's ongoing and we can work on real live data today. So let me go back to our setup and to DTerm. So imagine you are part of Lizzo's PR team and you are using DTerm. So you have our tool at your fingertips. This is how I suggest you use it even before the crisis hits. So hopefully you've been tracking your client and the news and the posts about your client for quite some time now. So it's not my advice to start tracking a certain crisis or a situation that may be negative for either your company or your client's company or your client when the crisis starts. Rather, you should track and monitor what is being said about them beforehand, just so you find a baseline. So what amount of exposure and what type of exposure, what type of conversations are, let's say, usual for your client. So for Lizzo, we know that the crisis started in August. Now let's say we are still in July. So I'm just switching back to July here in the tool. And we want to establish a baseline for the number of posts and the conversations about our client. So I have got a query or a search that is tracking my client. So what am I including? I'm including important keywords here. I'm including the name of my client, their handle on Twitter, for example, and their other variations of their name or their tags on social media. So I want to have a 360 overview of what the people are saying about my client. So this is how I set up my search. This is a broad query that is set up to collect everything. So let's find the baseline. In the reports, I'm selecting one of our template reports for a quick overview. So here we see the query we are analyzing. Here we see our date range. And here in the mentions over time graph, we see that in July, so at the beginning of the month, there were around 900 posts per day. So this is July 7th. Then there were around 2,000 posts on July 11th. So this is a peak here. We can always dig deeper to see what caused this little peak on this particular day. We see that on July the 21st, there were a bit more than 1,000 posts and so forth. The previous month, so in the month of June, we see that the biggest spike in the number of mentions is at around 3,500 posts. Then we've got around 3,000, and there's a spike at the end of June with 3,600 posts. So let's say that our baseline, when it comes to the average number of posts, what we can expect in terms of the number of mentions about posts about our client is somewhere between, let's say, 500 posts per day up to 3,500 posts per day. So we're just looking at the baseline. So we know what to expect. This is, business as usual for us and for our client. Now, let's take a look at the data for the last 30 days. So we are crossing over to August now. Now, what's in front of us is hopefully a rather significant spike we are seeing on August the 2nd. So we've got our baseline, and we see that all the posts up until August 1st are somewhere within our baseline we've established before. And then what's happening? On August the 1st, there's a spike, a small one. Maybe it's not the biggest, but we see a small spike from 1,900 posts to over 4,000 posts. And then on August the 2nd, we see that there were over 20,000 posts collected about our client. So this should be, a moment where we stop and have a hands-on meeting and start devising our PR comms strategy. Now, hopefully, since you are already using DTerm, you had an alert set up for this particular situation. So I just hopped from the reports tab to the alerts tab, and I'm setting up an alert for my client. So hopefully this is what I had already in place. Hopefully I selected my search, my broad search for, the general search for my client. I selected my smart alert, my spike alert, and I instructed the tool to send me an email if the threshold in the number of mentions about my client has been breached. So remember, we established a baseline, and the tool is going to calculate the baseline. So the tool is going to calculate the average number of posts about your client per day, which you can then multiply by any factor. So you can say, send me an email if my threshold has been surpassed by a little, or if the number of mentions is significantly higher. Don't bother me in other cases, but this is, you taking control over the alerts in this way. So hopefully, when using a media monitoring search, you're not only using it in times of crisis, you are using it to make sure that you are alerted on time when the crisis starts rolling in. Now, okay, it's a bit too late for that at this point in this particular example. So I'm just going to save my alert so you can see what it looks like in the tool in this tab. So let's go back to the feed and see what we can do when we are facing a crisis at hand. You've just signed up for DTerm and you need to devise a strategy for Lizzo. So this is scenario number 2. So we are looking at the last 30 days worth of mentions. We are looking at over 80,000 posts in total. So when I said mastering the filters within DTerm helps you significantly, this is what I meant. So of course, you can say, show me posts ranging from August 1st up until today. This is going to lower the numbers a bit, but not significantly, because we know that something happened on August 1st. So let's try and find the most important, as I said, players, news portals that picked up on the story, to see the language, to see how our crisis, how our client is being portrayed. So what I'm going to do, so I employed my date range filter, very simple. I'm telling the tool, show me only negatively marked mentions and sort my feed by reach. Click, click, click. So what am I seeing now? Now, what I've got here, I've got the most important posts when it comes to reach. So portals and websites that have a large following. This is what they are writing about my client. So the cat's out of the bag. They are already using the language. They're already reporting on my client. So what can I do about it at this point? You can sift through the posts, of course. And this is something you as a human being need to do. This is where your expertise comes to play. And let's find the phrases, the language associated with my client here. So, of course, we've got our client, our keyword. We've got Lizzo. We've got alleging harassment. So we've got alleged, we've got harassment. Then, again, we've got Lizzo. We've got she is being sued. Okay, so harassment, sued, trial. Okay, here we've got mention picked up. That is in Spanish. Okay, so the Spanish-speaking media is also picking up on this crisis. Then we've got Lizzo, we've got dancers. So we are trying to collect and find the broader context for our client and for this crisis. So of course you can go manually through your posts to see what kind of language is being used, but you can also hop here to the home tab. As you can see, I'm switching between the tabs quite frequently. So I've been in the feed, I was in the reports, I was in the alerts tab. There's some more tabs we're not going to touch upon today, but just so you know. So within the home tab, what do you have offered? You have got several clouds offered here. So you've got a word cloud, which gives you a singular word that is being most often used in posts about my client, a hashtag cloud, you've got an emoji cloud, but most importantly, you've got a phrase cloud here. So around my client, around our client, and around in this query we are tracking here, these are the phrases that are most commonly used. So remember, we saw being sued, harassment, hostile work environment. We see it here. Okay, Nicki Minaj is here. We can check it out later, see what's going on here as well. But this should give us an idea of what to focus on. Why? Because we're going back to the feed now. What we want to do in times of crisis is to create a crisis query. So as you can see, I switched from Lizzo, the general query to the Lizzo plus topic query. So what I want to do, I want to create a target search which is going to identify and save into my feed the news posts that are mentioning my client in a specific context. So I don't want any other news about Lizzo in my feed right now, even though it's very, very good to have this broad query. What I want to do is target, for example, the English-speaking media, because they are picking up on the news first. And I want to target the posts that use this specific language to see how successful they are, to see how fast they are spreading, and so forth. So here, now if you remember, here I used trial, suing, sued, court, harassment, and so forth. So I identified the language which is being used around my client in times of crisis, and I created my crisis query. So what can I do with this? I can, of course, track the mentions that are being posted about my client in this particular context right now. So the topic is hot. But this query is good to have just to see how or if my client is being portrayed in this context later on in time. So in a month's time, in 2 months' time, in a year, this query being empty with 0 results is going to signify that my client is no longer being mentioned or portrayed in this particular light. So this could be also indicative. So sometimes no mentions is a good thing. Now, since we are not already there, what can we do with this query besides tracking the posts and navigating through the language, identifying the outlets that are picking up on the news? You can create another alert. So by clicking here, add new alert, selecting your query, your topical query this time, you can create a smart alert. So this is not a spike alert, which is measuring the threshold, the number of posts, or whether the numbers are doubling or not. This alert allows you to instruct the tool to keep you informed and on top of every single mention about your client or about your ongoing crisis or situation. So this is why it's good to have this particular crisis query, because you need everything that's posted here. You need to be on top of this. You might not be, using DTerm 24/7, but you're on your phone, you're checking your emails. There might be a mention that you need to either forward or address immediately. So you can instruct the tool, send me an email anytime there's a new post collected and saved to this particular query I set up. Remove the limits per hour. So if there's 1,000 new posts, hit me with them. And then if necessary, you can add another layer of filtering here. So you can say, when the post, which is going to be saved in this particular query, contains a keyword, for example, apology, and if this post is posted on Twitter, because I'm interested in tweets mostly, then send me this alert. So by saving this alert, you're going to have it listed here. Of course, in DTerm, we can have as many alerts, as many contextually specific alerts as necessary. Okay, so to give you a brief summary before jumping to another tab. So we've covered having and creating a general query for your client. The alert that is going to notify you that something's brewing. There's a larger than usual number of mentions about your client. We saw how to create and what a crisis query looks like. We saw how to create an alert so you're on top of every single mention, very contextually narrow. And now, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to show you the reports as well. So the reports here in DTerm can be very accessible through the templates. So these are the ready-made, already waiting reports for you, which you can access, in one click, and they're going to be generated in a matter of seconds. However, what I love here are the custom reports. You can create custom reports that are going to read the data and show exactly what you need when you need it. So, for example, in times of crisis, this is what I recommend. I recommend tracking the number of posts over time. So this particular query, this is our Lizzo plus topic. So this is a crisis query. We see that in the past there were none. There were no posts about Lizzo in this particular context. August the 1st, August the 2nd, a big spike. The number of posts is on a downwards path. However, there are still some posts around our client in this particular context. Should we add some more words? Should we add some more keywords? What is going on? Are the people really stopped? We need to see what's going on here. Is the crisis really dying down? Of course, what you need to take into account as well is the general volume of posts about your client. So this particular graph shows you the trends in the number of posts about your client generally. So this is the general query. Of course, the spikes correspond here. This is no surprise. But here we see that we are slowly coming down, to our baseline that we identified before, which we can see over here when it comes to the number of posts. Now, through the reports, of course, you will be able to see the channels, the social media channels that are being used the most when people talk about our client. So in this case, when it comes to the number of posts, we see that Twitter takes the lead, followed by websites. Next on, of course, you might be interested in identifying these Twitter profiles, these websites, YouTube channels, which are extensively publishing and creating content about our crisis at hand. This might be indicative for you if you're, crafting a statement or just to see what type of media, are we talking about serious websites and news portals, or are we talking about paparazzi sites? So this is also helpful in the process of deciding about your PR strategy as well. Now, another metric I wanted to show you today is reach. So up until now, we were talking about the volume of posts about our client, about our crisis, in terms of counting the posts about them. However, what else you shouldn't forget is the reach. So which platform, which profiles, which channels are pushing this content about my client the most, and which channels are bringing this crisis to light the most. So, for example, here we see that on Twitter, the biggest profiles, the biggest news profiles are picking up on the story and reporting on the situation. Now, lastly, what I wanted to show you, of course, and this is something that should not be missed, we are talking about the sentiment over time graph. So you could see that we could filter our feed, having in mind the sentiment of the posts, of the mentions collected. So what I suggest here, tracking the sentiment over time. So here we are looking at our general query, and we see that up until August, the sentiment around our client was predominantly positive. Up until August, where it jumped to a highly negative sentiment, and now it seems it's dying down. So even though it seems the worst is behind us, I never suggest removing this graph, this chart from your report as another spike, another occurrence, another statement might cause an uproar or any type of reaction later on. Of course, after your work, after your advice and suggestion as a PR specialist, there might be a new a new number of posts that we need to track. Okay, so these are the reports. This is what I wanted to show you from DTerm directly. So as I said, I've given you an overview, so your input as PR professional is going to be highly appreciated. So if you have any thoughts, add them to the chat. All right, so to go back, and what else you might do in terms of crisis. And now that you've identified your crisis, and now that you are looking at the numbers, how to craft your message. So I'm bringing five rules from a PR specialist and journalist, Bill McGowan. So of course, this is a guideline. This is not something you should, employ every single time. Oh, Sunchita, are you sharing it?
Yes, I'm just about to pull up the 5 rules so you have them in front of yourself. Please continue.
Okay. So the 5 rules would be stay honest. So honesty is best policy. So Sunchita, the slideshow just disappeared.
Yes, just wanted to not distract you until I fix it up.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
So of course, honesty is the best policy, rule number 1. Second, own up to what has happened. So in addressing a crisis or a crisis situation, own up to your mistake or your misstep. However, this piece of advice should be taken with a grain of salt, of course, as apologizing or directly owning up to your mistakes, especially if there are legal implications involved, can lead to your liability as well. All right, rule number 3, set realistic expectations in terms of timelines. So if resolving your crisis or a problem is going to take some more time, don't be shy in explaining this as well. Rule number 4, don't wage war with the media. You are most definitely not as equipped and influential as media outlets are. And rule number 5, don't foster a culture of suspicion and secrecy. It's us versus them. The audience of today expects engagement and connection. So these are very broad guidelines, of course, when crafting a PR statement and when dealing with a crisis. Every crisis has its own timelines and its own circumstances, of course. So in short, own it, explain it, and then promise what you're going to do, do about it. Now, say you've crafted your response, it's out in the world, and you want to see if your client is doing better or worse, if the company you're working for is doing better or worse after your engagement. Well, I would suggest using one of our newest features, Cynthia, the AI assistant. So Suchita, maybe you can switch to the screenshot. So really quickly, what Cynthia can offer, of course, is an insight into the data you have just collected. So you can really easily see the summary and some key insights from a PR perspective on the data that you've just collected about either your crisis situation or your client. So I would suggest taking this snapshot either before the crisis situation, during the crisis situation, and after you've released your press release or you started working on the said crisis. So this is where I would stop. This is where I would leave. Of course, any questions, comments are more than welcome.
Thank you so much, Thea. Let me just, okay. Okay, before we head into the QA, just wanted to address some of the comments in the chat on the right. Obviously, this seminar was made for, about crisis management and everything else. This wasn't a means to just promote. We just wanted to educate how we use our tool for crisis management. So this wasn't that you have to use our tool for this. It was about how we identify some key signals. That's why Tad talked about like how we find these most relevant keywords and what makes a crisis actually. That's why we went in to see how to detect one. So obviously, when something happens and it's already in the news, some would say that you're already too late because you did not see all the spikes that happened before. That's why we believe a media monitoring tool like the term or anybody else is beneficial to see before it becomes a spike, a very big spike, and you're already kind of too late. And that's why we wanted to show you why it's important to catch it before it's, out there in the press and it's very, you're kind of too late already. That's why we use a media monitoring tool. But so let's head on to the questions. The first question is, this one's, I think Tad can answer this one. How does DITR make sense of the data, real-time and sentimental data? I'm not entirely sure. I think this refers to how we determine sentiment, or I think it's about what do we do with sentiment, basically. Tad, can you explain how is sentiment relevant for crisis management?
Okay, of course. So the tool, as you might have seen while I was sharing my screen, will assign a certain sentiment to all the posts collected. It will assign a certain sentiment based on the words and the phrases used in the news piece or social media post within this mention. So how is data making sense of the data real time and sentimental data? So I would redirect your attention to sentiment analysis, where you can see the sentiment breakdown when it comes to sources. So for example, you can select a certain source and see if the people are predominantly talking negatively, positively, or neutrally about a certain topic, let's say on Twitter or websites or blogs and so forth. You can track the sentiment over time, as we've seen this. And of course, depending on what you need to do, you have also the freedom to create some rules for the tool to instruct it. All right, when this phrase is used in the post that is collected, make this automatically negative, positive, or neutral, which will then in turn help you in analyzing the mentions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tab. Okay, the next question is more just, I'm going to put it up so I can answer it out loud. We do have case studies for determined usage. You can see all of them on our website. They're uploaded as we speak to determ.com. I'll make sure to send it forward when I send you the recording of the webinar as well. And you will receive the recording of the webinar. It's going to happen today, like an hour or two after it's uploaded. Okay. Everything's available online. You have other resources that we've put up as well as other webinars that we've done previously. Okay, another question for Thea. How much time back, I guess, historical data do we collect? I think that's one about that.
Oh, that's a good question. So upon creating a new query or new search, what is included is 3 months back for websites and up to 1 month back for social media.
Yes, of course there is situations where we can go even further back, but everything's available upon request, and once you're a client, I think we can find solutions to some other issues. Okay. I'm going to leave some time for some other questions if there are any. I will be sending the slides as well, just to answer your questions, together with the recording and some useful links to our resources such as case studies. Okay, if that's all, if you guys don't have any more questions, we can finish today's webinar. Thank you so much for attending, for registering. If you want a more, tailored approach to what you might need from a media monitoring software, you can book a demo or just access any other resources that we have available online. And yes, thank you so much for attending. Make sure to leave if you have any feedback for us. We have a question that just popped up. Does it incorporate new platforms like Threads? So Threads, as of right now, does not have an official API. So what an API is, it's something that we, as a software company, we buy from them or just get it if it's available online, and then we collect data from it. So it's not available officially yet. So us, just like any other media monitoring platform, we cannot track it as of right now. But in the future, it might happen, but it's still not available for tracking. Okay, thank you for that question. Yes, if that's all, again, thank you so much for attending, and thank you so much, Dea, for this very insightful webinar. And I'll see you in the next one.
Thank you, everybody. Hopefully it was helpful.
Goodbye.